I can still hardly believe it. After several years spent getting by on scraps of info for the long-awaited sequel to Breath of the Wild, the time has finally come. Not only did we get new details in the recent Nintendo Direct, at long last we have a name for the thing. The new trailer for The Legend of Zelda, Tears of the Kingdom has everyone talking and trying to figure out just what the hell is going on here, because the more we find out about this game, the more mysteries pop up. But I think we can glean some stuff here, because there's a lot of details in this footage hiding in plain sight. This isn't my usual MO, but I can use my eye for detail and take a closer look here, because I think I've picked up on a few things other videos haven't yet. So, get your lens of truth ready, and let's see what secrets lie hidden in wait. Brace yourselves, this might get a little crazy. The trailer's first section opens to a stone mural depicting a strange figure in some kind of ceremonial garb. At least I'm pretty sure that's an outfit and not their actual body. While at first it's unclear who this character is or where their allegiance lies, we can at least make a good guess at the latter. Context clues from later in the trailer give us reason to think this is a member of the Zonai tribe. For those out of the loop, the Zonai were a mysterious people who once dwelled in Hyrule a long time before the era of Breath of the Wild, with a society centered around the Therein region but with settlements elsewhere. Based on what little we know of them, the Zonai seem to have been rather primitive, with only a rudimentary understanding of the Triforce and its divine power. They did have some architectural and magical prowess though, because elaborate stone carvings with animal motifs are everywhere in the many Zonai ruins, particularly dragons, which they seem to have outright worshipped. And considering their creations include the massive Lome labyrinths and the perpetually pitch-black Typhlo ruins, they could really punch above their technological weight, possibly due to being in contact with the Sheikah at some point. Several shrines are located in former Zonai settlements, and treasure chests within 3 such shrines contain pieces of Zonai barbarian armor. Now that we understand who these people were, how does it factor into the individual in the mural? Is this a potential ally? An enemy? Someone long dead yet still relevant? The next scene shows a different part of the mural, or is it a different one entirely, depicting an army of bokoblins and moblins leading a wave of malice across the land, waging war against a brave defending force. Clearly this has to do with Calamity Ganon somehow, or maybe zombie what's-his-face from the first trailer, but what exactly is this here for? Hinting at a new threat for this game? Or is this a Zonai depiction of one of Calamity Ganon's revivals, contrasting the Sheikah Maid mural we saw last game? That'll be relevant later. The next scene puts us back to the Zonai figure from before, maybe a leader and or shaman figure, but zoomed out further so we can see everything around them. Turns out the figure is on a platform rising into the sky, surrounded by 7 teardrop-shaped gems. Is this what Tears of the Kingdom is referencing? They sure look an awful lot like the Tears of Light we've seen in a few previous games. If I had to guess, the plot will revolve around collecting/reclaiming these things. They're the MacGuffins this time, and there being 7 and not 4 or less might be a big deal. One of the few complaints I and others had about Breath of the Wild were the lack of traditional dungeons, and how the divine beasts were often too open-ended for their own good. If this game's directly addressing that, it's a pretty big deal. But did you notice something about the tears in this mural? They're upside down, as if falling up. Is that significant? Are they being used to reverse gravity and lift the platform into the sky? Is this how all the floating islands we've seen in multiple trailers came to be? And could this explain what happened to the Zonai? Did they obtain this power and abandon the surface world for the sky? If so, why did they? And then why do the islands we've seen so far look like they haven't been inhabited for a long time? So many mysteries. Speaking of mysteries, the person in the next shot is a dead ringer for Princess Zelda, floating helplessly in a pose reminiscent of at least 2 previous Zeldas. Is this depicting her about to be sacrificed? Is her power being forcibly used to unseal a great evil like in the previous examples? And does it have anything to do with the writhing shadows that have crept into the screen's borders since the segment with the tears? Zelda games love their recurring motifs, so something bad is happening here. Then the last of the mural scenes depicts, it's not completely clear. Based on the pointed ears, this figure on the right is native to Hyrule, possibly a Hylian, possibly a Sheikah, possibly Zelda herself again performing some sacred ritual. Whoever it is, the ornate garb means they must be important, as is whoever they're performing the ritual with, though we might actually know who it is. We'll get to that later. Also, there's some text off to the right in a language that is not Hylian text. Is this Zonai manuscript? They couldn't have been too primitive if they developed a written language. Did the Sheikah lend a hand with this? And more importantly, will we find out what this says, or will we have to wait for the inevitable art book to translate it? With that, we've made it to the actual gameplay. Link pushes open a massive set of double doors, revealing a walkway leading to a balcony and the open sky. The path beckoning onward, the bright, welcoming sunlight, it all makes this seem like the point where the world above opens up for you to explore. Where to first? Maybe that structure directly ahead that's probably of some importance? But can we go back a second to those doors? Take a real close look at what's depicted on them. Those twin dragons are a dead ringer for the Zonai art style, confirming that these structures in the sky are their handiwork and that they will play a greater role in this game, even if only posthumously. Next, the trailer cuts to a different scene where Link jumps off the side of a floating island and skydives. Gives us a good view of this section of the sky and a glimpse of the surface below. But there is so much more to talk about here. First, let's look at Link's current equipment. He's wearing his champion's tunic and a pair of Hylian trousers, not the new outfit we saw in a previous trailer, which means this is potentially early on. The tunic is reinforced by scraps of hard leather armor and leather gauntlets, same as in the first trailer. We can even catch a glimpse of Link's magic arm under the right gauntlet. Is that a prosthetic, or did the magic infuse itself into that part of his body? Link also has with him a sheathed sword of unknown design, what appears to be a new type of bow, none of the ones in Breath of the Wild look like that, and a new shield depicting 7 golden triangles and what looks like a not quite accurate take on the Sheikah crest. Almost seems like a Zonai smith tried to replicate Hylian iconography and missed the mark. Strapped to Link's belt, we see a very interesting object, one that looks an awful lot like a vessel of light. We have a clearer look at it in the official key art released after the Direct, where the resemblance is even closer. This is potentially where Link keeps the 7 tears from the mural as he obtains them. And okay, I need to stop myself from going on a tangent here, because the lore implications of what an artifact that heavily resembles something associated with the Twilight Realm is doing in a place seemingly created by the Zonai is a huge deal, and anyway, Link has all this equipment, but you notice what isn't here? A Sheikah slate. It seems he doesn't have it this time around, meaning he probably doesn't have the runes from the previous game and he'll have to rely on the new powers we've seen so far. Oh, and we should talk about Link's surroundings too. The beginning of the scene shows a massive fortress-like structure off in the distance. If the Zonai don't live in these parts now, they definitely used to. Further on, we have more outcroppings, a strangely dead-looking island amidst all the autumn scenery, and a very prominent inverted tower that definitely has some significance. But wait, there's one more thing here. Others have mentioned it already, but if you squint, you can barely catch the glimpse of a dragon far off in the distance. Seems this is where Farosh, Dinral, and Naedra go when they enter those sky portals in Breath of the Wild. Or is this a different dragon? Either way, this is a big deal, because remember, the Zonai worship these things. How will encounters with these strange and venerable creatures go this time around? Good question. Next, we see Link using a power first shown in a previous trailer, a variant of stasis that rewinds time for an object instead of freezing it in time. If I'm interpreting this right, the stone block Link grabs onto was originally part of the Skylands but fell down at some point, maybe just then, maybe long ago. He can use this new power to have the block move backwards in time, rising back up into the sky while he hitches a ride. Will this be one of your main ways of going back up to the sky? Or is this part of that set piece going on in the background? Speaking of which, this scene appears to take place in the tropical southeastern edge of Hyrule, which does have Zonai ruins in Breath of the Wild, as an ominous storm cloud swirls in the sky above while staying completely in place. That sure ain't natural. Other small floating land masses are visible nearby. You probably have to cross them to get to the storm. Something important is going on here, clearly. Maybe one of the game's dungeons is located within the cloud? This quick snippet shows Link climbing up a tree root sticking out from the side of a floating island, but there's more here than it seems. The clean cuts of the landmass make it clear these are not naturally occurring. More islands below, set amidst the night sky, show this is part of a much larger area. Link seems to be wearing the new outfit here, so this might take place later on in the game. And there's something blowing in the air. Is that snow? If so, then why do the trees down below still have their leaves? Something definitely ain't natural about this place. Finally, we get a panoramic view of the surface of Hyrule set amidst a beautiful sunset as Link summons a new Magitech glider to travel the skies with. There's a lot to talk about here, but let's focus on the last bit for now. This appears to be taking place above western Hyrule facing south by southwest. You can see Hyrule Ridge and its weird mushroom trees, the expanse of Tanagar Canyon, the Gerudo Highlands in the distance, and a bit of the Tabantha frontier on the right. More importantly, there's a gigantic glowing geoglyph in clear view depicting an unknown woman. It's upside down from our perspective. Is this Zelda again? Someone else? What's going on here? Who even made this? And what is Link doing with his own personal winged star? Especially when a previous trailer showed the old paraglider from Breath of the Wild is still around. Seems like this new aircraft might be designed to help Link get around the surface faster. But why? Well, from a game design standpoint, Hyrule must be significantly different than it was in Breath of the Wild, so that part of the game isn't redundant. So could that tie into it? Could the surface be sectioned off somehow like Lorule was in A Link Between Worlds, and you fly around between sections and liberate Hyrule one region at a time in whichever order you choose? Then we finally have the reveal of the game's official title and logo. Over 3 years it's been, and now there it is. Official word a while back was they didn't want to spoil anything prematurely, but this name honestly raises more questions than answers. But it's the logo that might tell us something. A pair of Zonai dragon heads linking up to form an Ouroboros figure. In addition to being the second recent big Nintendo title with an Ouroboros motif through sheer coincidence, this artistic choice must have been on purpose. If they're invoking the idea of a never-ending cycle of death and rebirth, one with 2 parts no less, could it have something to do with Link's new outfit from the previous trailer and how it's a dead ringer for the clothes the ancient hero is shown wearing in the Sheikah mural from Breath of the Wild? And look at the background. It's the mural from the final scene of the trailer's intro, revealing that the person the important looking woman is interacting with is the Zonai figure with the 7 tears. Why are the two of them meeting? Is this a depiction of something that happened in the past? A prophecy of something that will happen? Or is there time travel going on, blurring the lines between the two? We should also look at that key art I mentioned earlier. The artist's depiction of Link looking down on Hyrule from the lands above is just as incredible as its predecessor's official art, but it also contains some points of interest. There's a glimpse of Hyrule Castle ripped out of the ground and held aloft by Malice, which we saw in the first trailer, so that's nothing new. But what is new is that massive upside-down tornado in the air above the Tabantha region. Is this thing similar to that giant stationary storm cloud? There's also a clear shot of Death Mountain erupting Malice, something that was also visible in the skydiving scene. That's gotta be important. But humor me here for a moment, because there's one other thing going on and I can't help but think of the implications. Does the color of the Ouroboros design and the glowing lines on the busted Master Sword feel familiar? It's not exact, but this shade of green is very close to the one associated with Twilight magic and soul energy. Between this, the tears in the one mural, and the Vessel of Light lookalike in Link's possession, this raises a huge question. Did the Zonai become the Twilight? Did they grow envious of the sacred power the Sheikah oversaw, steal the Triforce and flee with it into the sky, and get caught sometime afterward and banished to another dimension that would become the Twilight Realm? Is this why the Zonai aren't around anymore? Could the Zonai figure in the mural be a distant ancestor of Midna, long hair and all? Does their ability to raise chunks of land out of the ground explain why the Palace of Twilight is located on a floating landmass? And don't think I didn't notice that the scene of Link diving down to the surface takes place at twilight. Okay, that's delving into crazy theory territory, but the fact that I can't tell if this is plausible or tinfoil hat territory says so much about why this series' lore and world building are so amazing. So that's more or less everything I could dig up regarding the recent trailer for Tears of the Kingdom. Still crazy to finally have a name to call this thing by. Almost as crazy as how many details they managed to cram into a minute and a half of footage. Not too long now until this long-awaited follow-up is finally in our hands. It'll be May 12th before we know it, and we're sure to get at least one more info drop before then. A trailer during the Game Awards feels pretty likely right now. Probably jinxed it by saying that, didn't I? Anyway, special thanks for this video to these people here. Thanks as well to my patrons for your continued support, even if this isn't my usual fare. So, until next time, hey, what's that up in the sky?